start our day here at 2:30. Thank you all so much for coming today to this great benefit to celebrate Lill's life. I'm Alyssa Leonard. I've known Lill, I think, since I was born, but that might not be true. The reason my family's here at Highview is because of the Sathers, because of our connection to Hanska. Lill, about 18 years ago, ran into me at a celebration down in Hanska called Setnamai. And she said my husband and I had been married and we had a little baby, Isaac. And we did that thing where all of a sudden we were like, oh, we better find a church. Did anybody ever do that? Yeah. So we started looking for churches and nothing. We couldn't find anything we liked. And then we looked. So we ran into Lill down in Hanska. And Lill says, you know, we go to this little country church out in Farmington. It's not far from where you live. And they're looking for a choir director. Maybe you'd like to come check it out. And I was like, well, gosh, my mom was the choir director. I don't think I'm qualified, but I'll look at it. So Tom and I, I'll never forget it, walked through those doors. Lill set the whole thing up, walked through those doors, and we both looked at each other and went, well, we're home. So we're really grateful for that. And anyway, I thought I would talk a little bit about what's happening today. So obviously right now you're here for a fantastic concert. And then at some point during the concert, Randy's going to pass around the offering plate. Because as we know, we are here for some great music, and we are also here we have a job, we want to raise some money, right? So that's a big deal. For the ALS Foundation and for the Sather family. So thank you for your generosity, really appreciate that. So there's going to be time, or a place to donate while the plate is passed, so that's great. And then after the concert's over, there will not be an intermission, right, Randy? You're going straight through? Yep. Okay. We get to hear a great straight through hour-long concert. Then after that, we will head over to the Celebration Center. That way. My sense of direction, not hot. And there will be a place you can get a name tag, and there will also be an offering plate if you want to throw something in there. And then you'll get some dessert, have a seat, and then the live auction will start, and that's, of course, where you can donate again. And, okay, so hang on one second. And, okay, so that's about it with that. So I got this really big phone. I thought it was really fun, so I thought I would, read Randy's accolades from it. He's got so many that I'm just gonna let him do that talking. But I did ask him, when did you meet Lill? And he said about 21 years ago, and they've been doing a concert ever since the benefit was started here. About 23 years ago, I think he did a couple before Lill came in. They worked together ever since. And for those of you that were at Lill's service, I just was thinking about the beautiful words that her kids spoke. It was so beautiful, and I was thinking about Dan talking about his mom with her ballet shoes and how she was so graceful all the time. And I was thinking about all these graceful instruments up here. I love that vision of how they go together. And then I was thinking about Amy, who ended with, her mom would write letters that would say, "Love, Mom!" exclamation point. And I was like, oh, it's just so good. I love that. I've been thinking about that exclamation point thing. And then I asked Eric again, what was the name of the book that you read? And he said it was Wherever You Are. It's a beautiful story. And so this is what I think we should think about today. Lill, wherever you are, we know where Lill is. But wherever you are, thank you, we love you, exclamation point. Yes.
Put together over the past years. It was usually around Valentine's week every year, and it was just great fun. So I've played here so many times. This is the first time I've done a full program, so it'll be great. And all these graceful instruments and some banjos. I want to clarify. They talk a lot about came from, how it ended up. It just didn't, it hasn't always been around. It went through a long evolution. If you go back about 500 years, it didn't exist, but this is the instrument that did. It's called a lute, and L-U-T-E, and it looks like something you grow in your garden and add strings. But these are individual strips of cherry. Take a 2x4, put it through a bandsaw. 13 times, you have 13 strips all the same. Sort of like gluing popsicle sticks around a Pepsi can. Okay, so it's a little more complicated, but that same kind of thing. Gut, the frets are gut, which is what strings were made of then. Now they're nylon, not quite the tone that gut strings have, but much more durable. The design in the center is called the rose, and it was purely decorative. It's the builder showing off his skills. And this was called, even 500 years ago, it was called a broken neck, because it looks like it's had a severe accident. The reason, there are always an odd number of strings on the lute. The first one is single, and the rest are double, that you play as one. And the reason for double is an attempt to get more sound. Now this is a 21 string creature. If it was straight, it would work. So they did them at a sharp 95-degree angle backwards, and all the tension was here. Now, do this. It's not as loud as you'd think it would be. It's really quite a soft instrument. When you start strumming, the sound waves get the top vibrating, they shoot backwards and bounce, but since it's round, they go in millions of directions. And you get about 30-35% of the sound that actually comes out. The rest stays in. Put your head on it, sounds incredible. But it slowly went. They discovered when they smashed, it sounded a lot better. So they started making it flat and began on the evolution. Give you an idea of the sound. And I have a mic just because this is such a soft instrument. These first ones on early music that I have. Now, the thing about the lute is you cannot see what you're doing. That fingerboard is so wide, so I can see the top of my knuckles, and by the time you bend way over, it's kind of tough, so you go by feel. You look around and say hi, Larry. This is just a few little pieces by a composer, Italian composer from the 1500s, Carlo Calvi. When they broke, they sounded better, and with a flatter back. So with a flatter back, you got a lot more sound. You didn't need double strings, and since you didn't have the double strings, you need the neck going back like this, and it slowly evolved into what became the guitar today. Now, lute was around pretty much unchanged from the 1100s into the Renaissance era. Then it started the whole thing. This is And that one was built in 1996. This was just built last December. It's called the Vihuela. That's the first step in the evolution. And it is 6 courses, but 11 strings. First a single, then double. So very similar. It's starting to look more like a guitar. They again had the intricate sound hole, other designs on it. And this is pretty simple. Some of them got very, very elaborate. Maple neck, back and sides are rosewood, walnut and cherry. And the fingerboard is bound in ebony. So you can imagine building something like this 500 years ago. They didn't take it down to the basement into the shop. There's some pretty incredible craftsmen. Now, the guitar was La Guitarra Española, the first Spanish guitar, was predominantly in Spain, and it was thought by the rest of Europe they laughed at it. It's never going to last. Well, it took over within 20 years, and it kept going into what it is today. Luis Milan was a composer, the main composer for this instrument, and I'll give you an idea of the sound. Almost like a guitar. It's getting there. Sound that's halfway between what guitar is today and between the old-fashioned lute. Now there's another piece that is written by, it was later into the, going into the early Baroque era by a guy named Gaspar Sanz, who wrote a ton of things for the vihuela and for the Baroque guitar. And it's called Canarios. Let's see. Have to talk a bit about Luther. Martin Luther was, besides the religious Reformation, he also kicked off a musical Reformation. Big change. And in that, worshipers did not sing in the congregation, or in the service. It was just a select 4 people, the elite called the choir, and the priest. Well, what he did is changed it. He wanted to involve the congregation in the service, and he felt the best thing was through hymnody. So the most popular piece, of course, his greatest hit, Mighty Fortress. And it was, play it the way it originally was. Now, he played the lute. He was an extremely fine musician. He was a poor priest, so he didn't have a pedal harpsichord of his own, but he had a lute. And this is how it originally sounded. Highly syncopated. somewhere along the way, the Swedes and the Norwegians got a hold of it. But, so as far as on Sunday morning, you got a roast. Sermon's gone late, you got a roast burning up in the oven, and you see there's 6 verses on the neck. Luther's responsible. Now this next little one, this is kind of a living room show and tell, you know, big living room. This is an instrument I just recently had made, in fact, from the same builder that made the vihuela. His name is Georgi Lodinski, and he's in Romania. We correspond, his English is terrible, it was much better than my Romanian. But this is a soprano lute, a descant. In the late Renaissance, they had bands, they called it band of music, M-U-S-I-C-K, and a band of music, and there was maybe 2 or 3 lutes. You would have a descant lute, which played the cutesy stuff, sort of like a soprano on a choral piece. And they generally didn't play solo stuff, but I'll give you a little idea. And there are going to be lots of things slightly out of tune. The humidity just went crazy today. And going from my house to here, setting up their stretch, well, we'll live with a quarter tone here and there. The other thing is, this is really interesting to hang on to. A lot of the pieces for lute in the Renaissance were theme and variation. So you hear that playing around a little with it. Is so tiny. In fact, if you were going to learn how to play a lute, you would have one about this size. And this is made out of bird's eye maple and paduk, which is a North African wood. Very, very beautiful. Again, the rose carved out of the top itself. That's also kind of the identifying mark of a builder. That was his signature. Again, showing off how well they could carve. Let's see. Now, those are reproduction instruments. There are quite a few lutes that are in museums around the world, but you're looking at 500-year-old kindling. Try to tune it up and it would just destroy, tear it apart, it couldn't possibly. But they have been CAT scanned and X-rayed, and these instruments are virtually identical to ones. In fact, this one was from 1530, the other from 1535. With the exception of nylon strings, it could fall back in history and it would fit in very well. This is old. This was built in 1785, and it is, now it looks like a guitar. It's 10 strings set up in 6 courses. If you're a guitar person, you know what I'm talking about. First 2 were single, and then double an octave. And I have very light tension strings on because you can see an enormous crack right here. This has to be repaired before I put the full tension, so it's about half the volume it would be. But at this point, it looks like a guitar. Back and sides are English U, Y-E-W, which was what the longbows in Shakespeare time were made. You could steam it, bend it, and retain the shape, and they were a wonderful sound wood. And it's interesting because the neck is a single piece of Brazilian rosewood, that they were using wood like that, exotic woods, even 500 years ago, or 280 years ago. Now, with the lute, also, you had everything from what I was playing before. You had, and also just accompanying songs. All the way to. Just again, in fact, lute was guitar of the day. So we have everything, just like it said everybody plays guitar and a few people play it well. It's the same thing with the lute. Now this, very, very soft, but it sounds like a guitar. It's just not right. Let's see, give you an idea of the sound difference. This one is more for show and tell, just because it can physically take the tension. But at this point, it's becoming a guitar. Now this is all carved, and then black ink, and then shellacked over. And down here, there's no label inside, nothing under the top. I've gone into the mirror to see. But this floral design down here with the initials AP. So some builder in England in the 1780s by the initials AP. The next instrument I have is, this is built in 1835. Now it looks like a guitar. This is Brazilian rosewood, ivory, which is now a double whammy. If I left the United States with it, it would be confiscated when I came back in and burned, which is a scary thought. And they've now eliminated the exemption on antiques. If it's ivory, it doesn't matter. So it'll change eventually. But anyway, this is just a beautiful instrument. And if you went in to a builder, you didn't pull it off the wall like a Schmidt music. You'd look and say, oh, you got long fingers, oh, this, or short fingers, and each one was just basically custom made. But in 1835, the raw materials for this, the wood came from Brazil, ivory probably from India because it was a trade commodity, German spruce, ebony from Africa, and then the mother of pearl that came from Japan. So just to get the raw materials, they did not go on the internet and have it FedExed overnight. It took, it was an extended effort. You ordered enough, if you could order enough for 15 instruments to last you to do it, and you'd keep sending in to get them, the materials constantly coming. And it sounds like a guitar. Now this has, this one has gut strings, and they have just a beautiful sweet tone. Very, very pretty. They're extremely high tension and a little harder tension-wise to play, but it's a beautiful sound. This is a piece from by Fernando Sor, who was a guitar composer in the 1830s in Spain. Just a little etude. Pretty little thing. Now, after hearing that, and how all of a sudden that this richness and fullness, going back just about, 6, 7, 80 years at most, this is what followed the Renaissance lutes. Yeah, it's got that wow factor. Yeah, this is a Baroque, what was called an arch lute. And they're, during the time of Bach and on into the 1700s, these were played. They were part of the orchestra. Somewhere along the way we got kicked out. But it is, basically, it's lute tuning, which for a guitarist, the lute is tune the G string down a half step to F sharp, throw a capo on the 3rd fret. That's what a lute is. Okay? You don't think about it, you just play it. Much easier. But this has so many extra basses. And the biggest problem with it is you cannot see your hand at all. It's so wide. You have the tied gut frets. This is African blackwood, which is just a gorgeous wood. And again, it's Not a terribly loud instrument. We'll give you an idea. In fact, George Frederick Handel, in the original score, the orchestra called for 2 arch lutes in addition to the viols. Instrument. One more little lute. I already played. Never mind. This is now jumping into guitars. Jose Ramirez was a cabinet builder in Madrid in the 1880s. And 1882, he said there was such a demand. All of a sudden, the guitar was popular and in demand all over the world. And he said, I can build those. And he started a workshop, which is still, it's Jose Ramirez VI that's building now. It has been around since the 1880s and putting out the finest instruments in the world. This is just has the most gorgeous flamed maple, which violin builders would kill for a chunk of wood like this. The neck is mahogany. This is a tap plate, which I'll explain what for, but that's out of tortoise. And then about 50 concentric rings of wood with pearls sliced down the middle, inlaid around the sound hole. And this was a very expensive guitar. It's from 1900. I doubt if it was a child's instrument. It's much smaller than the ones that were usually made, but definitely for a very small person. And again, I've got it strung with gut. I'm going to play a flamenco piece. Now, flamenco is music from southern Spain. It's a folk music, extremely rhythmic. The only music on earth that is more rhythmic than flamenco is African drumming. So this will give you an idea. All flamenco pieces are dances. This is a dance called a farruca. And on it, you'll hear where you hit the top. doing his or her thing, and the guitarist is following the signals given with either hands or feet. And notice there are two sections in that. It would go from the chorus, then to a melody part. In the melody part, you're the equivalent of chorus and a verse. In the verse part, you're improvising. So in that way, it's similar to American jazz. And in the other part, the rhythm section is the equivalent of the chorus. It always comes back to that. That piece could be 3 minutes long, it could be 12, depending how long, what the dancer wanted to do, or the singer came out and sang about the tragedy of the gypsy life, the whole thing tied together. And about 100 some years ago, the flamenco guitarists from the south met up with classical guitarists from the north, and he ended up with a solo instrument. This was made by his son, Jose Ramirez II, in 1926. And in 1929, crash of the stock market affected worldwide. Spain was heavily invested. They lost a lot, and builders could no longer afford the expensive maple wood. They went to this cheap garbage wood that we're using for fuel called cypress, and it's been standard ever since. It has this wonderful gypsy sound, almost a snare drum rasp, and it just came out of that. Ever since, it's been traditional. This is a 3-piece back for the only reason that he didn't have 2 that were large enough. And you may do. A wonderful flamenco. This does not have a tap plate, so usually you come down straight down, ring finger, and use your fingertip. Doing it on here, one tap and you have a gouge, and one song you have a hole about the size of a dime, so you adjust. And this is a capo, or called a cejita in Spanish. It is usually made by apprentices. Some are extremely ornate. One I have on one of these guitars is about 200 pieces, tiny little pieces pieced together. The longer the string, the more powerful the instrument. So they would make flamenco guitars a little longer and then capo it up here. So we had more power, but it was much easier. Frets are closer together. So you can move faster, and that's been tradition ever since it was 2nd or 3rd fret. This is a dance. None of the real fancy stuff on it. It's called a cigarillas, and it alternates measures of 3, 4, and 6/8. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, all pretty much through. Started building in the 1930s with his father. Died in 1996. This was built in '82, and he made more innovations that are still standard today. Most of the guitar builders in the world are classical guitar builders who go through Ramirez School of Design. And a lot of them that were apprentice for him and are now builders on their own, about 70 who have gone through that are now building through the years and changing their own things, but basically they're all Ramirez design. This is Indian rosewood, which is just gorgeous. The top is cedar with the grain is about a 1/50 of an inch part. That's where you get your tone. Very, very narrow, very straight. And strip of ebony, which is like granite, that keeps it from warping. They don't use steel rods on classicals. Now, the design, besides the label being signed by the builder, there's also the headstock. That's a design that Ramirez uses. It's copyrighted. So you can tell from 30 rows back at Orchestra Hall what builder the guitarist is playing. Also, the ring, or called the rosette, is about 4,200 little pieces of wood that are put together, and they're all made. Those, again, are made by the apprentices. If they can do that, they can go on. If they can do the fine detail work, they can go on. Learn to do nothing but carving next, and they can carve them better than anybody in the world. Go on, learn how to steam the wood. So it's about a 7-year program. So you're, at any point in the way, in the middle, you don't make it, you're done. So this is, oops. This is a very beautiful piece called Recuerdos de la Londra. And the lovely thing about it is I played it at Amy's wedding. And I played it just about every year here. But the first word really ties up the whole day. It's called Memories. And very lovely piece. this delightful woman who 34 years ago spit a whole mouthful of water over a railing in school on the back of my head. We both lived. Well, I'd forgotten. You told me that. I apologize. Oh. Well, another friend who's former student who was a Beatles freak, and I assume still is. I'll adjust accordingly. This instrument. Now, with the rosewood, kind of the rule of thumb: the darker the wood, the richer the tone, and the more power. The white wood, either cedar, which has a red glow, or white spruce, you get your trebles. If you had a whole instrument built out of rosewood, very dark and muddy. You need both. You get the brightness of the wood, or the mellow, depending on what you want. And in the 1960s, folk movement, everybody played mahogany guitars because they had the sound, nice and mellow, wonderful for folk music. Bluegrass, a lot of them have made out of maple, which is a very bright, brittle tone almost, sort of like trimming your stereo system on treble and turning down the bass. You got the notes the same, but that tone quality that just pierces through. Wonderful for bluegrass. Rosewood, you get powerful basses, piercing trebles, and just about everything in between. This is a piece that's going to show, hopefully, a lot of the different tone color you can get. It was written about 1900 by Itzhak Albanus, originally written for piano, imitating a guitar, but in a group of pieces called Suite Español. Each movement was about a different city in Spain, and this is about the city of Asturias, and it's subtitled Leyenda, which means legend. definition of banjo, or of a gentleman, is someone who knows how to play a banjo and doesn't. Let's see, if you know how to tune one, it's never been done. And perfect pitch is you throw a banjo into a dumpster and it lands on an accordion. But this is a Civil War era banjo, and they're basically came over from Africa with slavery in more of a percussion instrument. And it was more percussive with a calf or pigskin head, and a little stick, and it was more like a variable pitch. Well, kind of combined in the United States with the idea of a guitar, and ended up with a new instrument. Now, guitar evolved over hundreds of years, banjo over about 3-4 decades. This was very similar to 1840s, 50s, and 60s. This has only 8 lugs around it, but you can see, and it also has the original calfskin head. This probably was bleach white when it was first put on. But it's from 1865. You can see the eagles, the brass eagles. Okay, the predominant market was the South. And if you were a Southern musician, you wanted a good banjo, you had to buy one from the North. And so the banjo makers in the North either put the eagle, an American flag, or the Union shield on, which was kind of a nasty thing, but they came off very easily, and many of these have a shadow from where they used one. This one survived. Walnut neck, and this is fretless. There are no frets. We call it inside. In other words, cut the slot, put it in like a toothpick, sand it down flush. So this is the original true folk sound of a banjo. Gut strings, and because you're sliding between frets, there's no definite stopping point for a pitch like there's on guitar. So you get this wonderful folky sound in there. See somebody sitting on a porch playing it. This is 1860s. Now, also, this is 1890s. Added metal that went from that is about 1.5 pounds. This is about 12. This is bird's eye maple ring, and then it's clad in steel. And a lot more power. And then this is again with gut strings. This is a gorgeous one. Its fingerboard is inlaid mother pearl, chipboard. The basic Montgomery Ward's model of this instrument by a company called SS Stewart. They made millions of these. But any degree of ornamentation you wanted. And you get the very simple model was $8.50. This was a $40 inlay, which was a lot of money in those days. Chip carving was another $25. Ivory pegs, another $30. And altogether, this was about a $130 instrument in 1898, which was an awful lot of money. And now you have frets. So that same piece, Cripple Creek. Much different. And in the 1890s, about 1920, there was a style of music called classic banjo. And it was similar to classical guitar. It was fingerstyle. You had every college in America had a banjo orchestra. I have a picture of one from the banjo orchestra from 1905 at the University of Minnesota. You got 65 young men in their tuxedos, hair parted in the middle, sitting proudly with their banjos. And they were soprano, alto, tenor, bass, all the banjos. This say before, tells your mind, your brain immediately it's banjo, is this drone string. After every note is played, you have like one, strong thumb. How's a banjo? So that gives it away right away. Now this would be a tenor banjo in the orchestra. Oh, here we go. This is a soprano, and it was made in New York, a company named Buckby. They would custom make anything you want, and this, a gentleman had ordered it for his wife, and wanted her name put on the heel in the back of mother of pearl. And her name was Pearl. Oh, that's like 8th graders, you know. Good enough. Give you an idea, that same thing on this, you get to fly a little more. But, first thing to go on a banjo or a good guitar, especially in those days with French polish, which is a very soft finish, is the neck gets, instead of shiny, it wears away. This is still extremely shiny. There's very little playing. And right here, the fingerboard, the varnish, just here and here, a little bit of wear. Which means all Pearl could do was, and she probably sang with the kids, and it sat for a few generations underneath the bed. And I'm the third owner. A guy who got it in the estate sale when the family, grandma finally got today, had sold it. He bought it, and I got it about 5 years ago from him. He said I thought it would go to a good home. But it's kind of cool that nowhere, anywhere, I guess it's practically mint condition, which this was 1898, and this was made. Now, this is soprano, alto, tenor, bass. This is a piccolo. And at first it looks like a toy, but it's not. It's a real instrument. They cost more than full size because they're more labor intensive building. And on here it's SS, a little strip of ivory. SS Stewart, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and curved around another piece of ivory that says Little Wonder. That was the name. Now on this, it would do the cutesy stuff, just like a descant would a couple hundred years earlier. And just playing chords, this thing is really powerful. So kind of a cool little thing. And another instrument that's really come into being and popular in the last 10 years is ukulele. If you go to Hawaii and say ukulele, you're a stupid tourist. If you say ukulele here, you're a snob. So but that's the actual. This is a little one from, that was built in Vietnam. It's acacia, which is a very pretty toned wood. And the builder is far more known for his inlay work than his craftsmanship as a builder. It's a decent instrument, but very, very pretty. If you were and this is called a concert size, the tiny little ones, the 1920s, very, very small, the stereotype little uke, it's called a soprano. This would be the equivalent of an alto, it's called a concert size. And tenor is the next size, and just about everyone plays a tenor now. They're all tuned the same, just larger, so there's far more sound. And playing that little one is so cramped, so tight together. But this, if you were a good young man in college in the 1920s, you played a uke. And you had like the 1920 sound. that kind of thing. Now, there are two tunings called, one a high G, one's a low G. That was the traditional, the high G. Low G is the first string closest to is an octave lower. Very similar if you put a capo on the 7th fret of a guitar. That's what it is. George Harrison, the Beatles, was a uke fanatic. He wanted to do Here Comes the Sun on a uke, and the other three said no. So what he did is he capoed it on the 7th fret, and he played it, and it sounds like a uke when you listen to it. But this is, and this instrument is very special. I retired from Farmington schools last June. It's 38 wonderful, blissful years, and 38 years, wonderful. And the faculty, the 17 music teachers in the district, presented me with this. I wanted a tenor uke, and our high school band goes to Hawaii on over spring break. It's rough, but they do a concert tour over there. 10 concerts in 8 days, and the two directors went around to 5 different builders, and they talked to, well, we've got this guy that's a collector, he's retiring, and da-da-da-da-da, and it's beautiful. This is Hawaiian poa. The fingerboard is poa and maple and different strips, and just sounds good. It's just a blast. So when I got, the way my retirement party was going, they said, we have a little presentation. They gave it to him, you know, the case. I truly expected there to be an inflatable nude when I opened it. But it was far better. But give you an idea of the sound, the lower. It's a heart-shaped sound hole called a ku'uipo, which means sweetheart. You're supposed to go, oh. And this is a high G tuning. A guy named Jake Shimakaboru made the uke famous. Brought it really back as a solo instrument. Kid from Hawaii. And he took a Beatles song, While My Guitar Gently Weeps. And it has on YouTube over 25 million hits. It's just incredible. And this is kind of a rendering of it. This is they started making steel string guitars basically around World War I. They needed a much sturdier neck. Quite often they started using steel rods in them. This is Orville Gibson had designed a guitar. This is a Gibson L1 from 1917, and it's an arch top, where he had mandolins, or first arch tops in the 1890s were carved. So the top is actually curved. And the pick guard has this incredible apparatus holding it on. It's tortoise shell, as this is. It was the last year they used it. Cool old bluesy sound. I'm not a blues guitarist, but I'll give you the idea. I have a friend who passed away last summer, 2 weeks before his 100th birthday. And she was a good guitar friend to go into Glencoe in Minnesota. And my mother-in-law was in a nursing home there, and I heard guitar music coming from across the hall. So of course, I went over. And I'd always bring a guitar, a banjo, or something. I brought this out. He looked at it and said, "Oh, that's what we wanted. We all wanted one of those." And of course, we had those pieces of Montgomery Ward garbage. Anyway, this is, it was always cool seeing him tool down the hallway of the nursing home with his guitar amplifier in his wheelchair. So this gives you just a little idea. The best line he had was, "You should have really heard me 80 years ago. I was really good." And he still played. Or it was just fun. Anyway, this is a little idea of the sound. Now, it's just a fun to play. Action as well. Kind of cool. So that's one of the first real marketable steel strings by Gibson. This is a kind of unusual. Looks like when hubcaps go bad. It's called a resonator, and it weighs a ton. But there's actually a steel cone under this that amplifies it, and it's a very loud. They're used for blues, but they're kind of fun for fingerstyle playing too. Different tone. Very powerful upper register, which you don't have on most guitars. Instrument, and usually they're played with a slide, and many different tunes or tunings that are used rather than standard tuning. This is what Martin came out with. It was they called it, because it looked so enormous and huge thing, they called it a dreadnought, which was a World War I battleship. And that name is stuck. It's a dreadnought. This was built by a builder in Oregon. Last name is Cormelin. And he's mainly a harp builder, but builds some beautiful instruments. This is Vietnamese rosewood. Now, as of yet, the jungles of Vietnam have not been declared endangered species. The wood from it, but the wood is just gorgeous, beautiful wood. And this is what you is usually standing up with a strap. A very full sound. That's pretty much the standard steel string now, the dreadnought size. Okay. Oh, just a few others. This is a mandolin, and this was built in 1898 by a couple builders named the Larson brothers. They built high-end instruments for other companies, but never had their own name. But the beautiful mother of pearl inlay, Brazilian rosewood and walnut on the back. And all the mother of pearl around it, even the tuning gears in the back inlay are etched. and hard to hang on to. They had a, being this round, but that kind of thing. And picked up bluegrass music. Playing rhythm. This was a design called Neapolitan. And then many in the 1890s, started making these guitar shaped, flat back, and this is a magnificent piece of Brazilian, just like melted Crayola crayons on the back. However, Brazilian, ivory, tortoiseshell. It's a triple environmental as far as now, but very loud little thing. And I had this case built for these three antiques because they're so fragile, and I wanted it. There's 29 measurements for each instrument, and I wanted it out of 3/8 inch plywood. They made it out of 3/4. Which adds approximately 30 pounds to the weight. It's heavy. Nothing's going to happen to the instruments. Blast guitar. I'm going to show you, play for you. Is the arch rival of the Ramirez clan back to Spain. It's Conde Hermanos, the Hermanos of Conde brothers. And this is cypress, spruce top, clear tap plate. And again, their signature rosette, and this one's about 3,500 little pieces of wood. And the last piece I'm going to play for you is style of flamenco, where the very heavy feeling of the darkness of the tragedy of a gypsy life, and the dancer does his thing, singer does his or her thing, and the guitarist is playing. Now, what I have kids do all the time is clap 12 beats. I'm not going to make you clap. But the 12 beats in a measure and are accented on 3, 6, and 12. And I'd have the kids clap and then they clap, accenting 3, 6, and 12. Some inevitably will clap 9. And if you do that, you're told to leave. They're very, very serious when you're accompanying a flamenco dancer. You have to know what you're doing. So they're in the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Anything in there but 9. And this will show you pretty much the true feeling of flamenco. while packing.
Takes
Yeah,
a while
I'll
to pack
be here. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Great job. Well, we'll be heading over to the Celebration Center to grab your name tag and your piece of cake and your auction item booklet, and we'll go over and keep the celebration going. Thanks again, Randy.